Can you tweet? Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Ingles on the Beat segment. And pleased to be joined by a coaching legend, Mr. Bruce Rollinson, going into his 33rd year at Mater Dei High School out here in California. And obviously, Coach Rollinson, Coach JT Daniels. He's coached current Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. A lot of other quarterback greats. We're going to talk about the program, and we're going to talk about a couple current SEC quarterbacks and players. Coach, thank you very much for joining us. I know you're a busy guy at school, just getting wrapped up here, and you had a spring football season. Let's start with that. You know, not everybody got to play last fall. Football was postponed to the spring, a 5-game season for Mater Dei. How was that playing football in the spring?
You know, it was fun. The first thing I want to do, I got to give a shout out to my guy, Rich Rogers. He used to be my wide receiver coach in the 90s, lives right down the street. He's a big fan of you guys. Richie, how you doing, buddy? You know what? People have asked me a million questions about playing in April and March. It didn't matter on game night. Everything else was different, okay? You didn't have that feel of a normal preparation, summer, things like that. But once you got to the stadium, it was, all bets off. Let's crank it up and let's go. So it was great. We were fortunate. We were 5-0. We were able to win the big one, which around here in Southern California, the St. John Bosco Mater Dei game is a big one. So we feel good. It's a good launch pad into what I call the second season of 21. But the best part for me is I got a ton of them back. So,
yeah, a lot of players back. I was at Bosco earlier. They got a lot back too. But
yeah,
I'll tell you, Southern California football, look, people in the South, we know it, right? We look around Metro Atlanta, we see that Grayson program, that Buford program, the number of players that they're able to put out, certainly Colquitt County. We talk about South Florida football. We hear about Texas football. But Southern California, it's a little different now. This Trinity League, there's only 6 teams in it. But when you play against Bosco, how many FBS recruits are on the field at that time?
The people of Sports Illustrated covered the game April 17th, and they say that there were 56 Division I players going at it. And there were something like 34 kids that were 5-star or 4-star with 20 plus offers each. So, there's a lot of talent out there. It makes me look like I know what I'm doing. I can tell you that.
Well, it is a little bit different. And certainly one of the things that Southern California is known for is quarterbacks. And Mater Dei is the quarterback factory. I hope that's not an offensive term when you say factory. One of the players, Georgia fans are familiar with, they played him in the Sugar Bowl. And I want to start out talking about Colt Brennan because I actually covered that bowl game, Coach. I know he's a former player of yours, and everyone knows that Colt tragically passed away recently. But I was actually freelancing for the Honolulu Advertiser that week. I took a week off my regular job just so I could write about I guess it was a replaced Sugar Bowl and Colt Brennan in Hawaii against Georgia. And, all the records that this kid set in Hawaii were remarkable and truly a fantastic player. And it started here. And I guess I would ask you just to kind of share a memory about Colt for us because the Georgia fans did see him compete that night against a really loaded Georgia defense.
Well, you know what, Mike? It's been sad around here. It's forced me to live a philosophy that I have told other people, and that is cherish the memories and don't ask why. But I have to be honest with you, that why question has come up a few different times as I've prayed for Colt. and Colt's family, Betsy and Terry Brennan. But again, I'm going to cherish your memory. I'll tell you what, if you knew Colt, okay, his pictures right straight across from our camera spot right here. Colt was probably, I kidded Colt all the time. I said, Colt, get out of this crazy game of football, be a bathing suit model, because he was built, he was unbelievably good looking, and he had a golden smile. And that's the memory that I have. I got into Colt's dish at different times as a high schooler, and Colt would always end up with a smile saying, it'll be all right, Coach, I can handle this. And handle it, he did. He had a great senior year. The other thing, you got to admire Colt Brennan. He played behind Matt Leinart, future Heisman Trophy winner. Bided his time, not like the quarterbacks of this day and age. If they don't play as a sophomore, they got to go get PT so they can get the scholarship. Colt wrote it out, learned from Matt, had his backup role, and then took over the helm 1 year and had just as much attraction and offers and things like that. And I use Colt all the time. But yeah, I mean, Dog Nation, say your prayers tonight. It's a family in need of lots of prayers when you lose a 37-year-old son.
Yeah, really sad. One of the many great quarterbacks. You mentioned Matt Leinart a second ago, the second Heisman Trophy winner. I was talking to JT's dad earlier, and he said when he was on a visit with Alabama, Saban was in the hallway and pointing out the Heisman trophies, and there was 2 Heisman trophies for Alabama. And Steve said, "Oh, we had 2 in Mater Dei too." I don't know if that's exactly how I would have warmed up to Nick Saban there, Steve, but he ended up in Georgia. Go figure. But Leinart was a guy, though, winning the Heisman, what he did at USC, what Pete Carroll was doing at USC. And you're a former USC player, right? And so, yeah, right. I mean, what Pete Carroll did for Southern Cal football, and I think we're all kind of waiting to see if Southern Cal can ever, but how did he do it? What did he do it? And what did that mean when Southern Cal was rolling here for you guys?
I don't care whether you call it a factory, whatever you want to call it. I'll give you a statistic, okay? Going to my 33rd season, 1989, every one of our quarterbacks, except for one, has got a Division I scholarship. So, I'll put that up against anybody. The people don't remember the history. Leinart was on his way to Oklahoma, okay?
Oh, I didn't know that.
And here come Pete Carroll. There's a changeover, and Pete worked his magic, and Matt locks down and rode out that freshman year, and then it's don't look back from there. Now, obviously, whether it's JT or Bryce or whoever you want to talk about, you got to have talent around you. You got to have great coaching around you. And the Leinarts, Matt's one of the first one. I'm fortunate. I stay in touch with all these guys. Matt Barkley, and they will say the same thing. They're still very humble young men. They were extremely talented high school players that had great college careers, and they give back. There'll be times when they'll come to my summer camp. Or if I'm having a youth camp and they're in the local area, they'll come down, whether it's 15, 30 minutes, maybe air it out a little bit and take some pictures with the kids. That to me is the difference when you've got character kids like that. But we're very proud of the lineage of quarterbacks.
No doubt. You mentioned Matt Barkley. When he the first true freshman to start, and then came along Daniels. But Coach, when I first talked with Coach Rollinson, it was I think it was last spring, right after JT announced, or maybe it was last summer, around May or June. I gave you a call and I said, tell me about this kid. And you said, Mike, it's 6th grade, right? You told me the 6th grade story, and I'll let you share that with the audience because it's not a story that you hear too often.
Well, we have in the off season, beginning in January, we have youth quarterback academies. And so you'll take 15, 20 kids. All the dads think they have the next prodigy quarterback. And what we do is we divide it into two sessions. First session being classroom, getting them to understand coverage and leverage and concepts. And the second session is on the field training. And, I have to put my name because of the way the Southern California rules work. It has to be the Rollinson Quarterback Academy, the Rollinson Skills Camp, the Rollinson whatever strength camp. But my coaches helped me run them. In the case of the quarterback camp, I didn't do very much. I just take all the credit. But when it's all said and done, okay, I got Dave Money, who's been with me since 1989. Dave is he's the ultimate professor of football. That's all he does. And Dave was a quarterback of mine when I was in the community college ranks here in Southern Cal. And then Dave was the only guy when I took the job in 89, I said, I want Dave Money to run the offense. I didn't want to run the offense. Dave kept talking about this kid and it was going in one ear and out the other. I said, yeah. In my mind, I'm not going to go sit in a meeting and listen to some sixth grader. Finally, Dave begged me. So I sat in the back of the room while Dave kind of got on the board and I could see that 90% of the room had checked out except for definitely JT, and maybe another kid was hanging, but he was going into the 8th grade. JT is a 6th grader. And I started to listen to the questions this kid asked. And I got to be honest, I kind of sat up in my chair and I said, I think he knows more about coverage and things like that than I do. I was fascinated. And, Dave ran down at the end of the meeting. I told you. And he was right. That was JT. When JT left Mater Dei, he did the reclassification, which was a whole new adventure for me. Sure. We looked in his locker. There were 6 notebooks, page after page after page. He took copious notes of every meeting that we held, whether it was a video session, an individual meeting with the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach Dave Money, or a general offensive meeting. He studies the game. I used to kid JT because, we're grinding until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night on school nights. And there were times when I'd look down in the conference office and I go, who's still here? It'd be JT in front of the projector. And I go, whoa, I think you might have. And he goes, don't worry, my dad's waiting for me in the parking lot. Steve. So, that's what you were dealing with. When JT, decided to go to Georgia, that's the only question. I said, JT, will they allow you to use that God-given brain on your head, get into a system? And he got into that system. And I think now with a year under his belt, there's going to be that much more flexibility for JT Daniels, because in his junior year, which would be his final year, we might give him a formation and then we just point at it and he'd take it from there on the field. So my offensive coordinator was basically wearing health, and, life was good. Now he had tremendous talent around him. He had an unbelievable offensive line in front of him, and he will be the first one to credit the receiving corps. All 5 offensive linemen will get Division I rides. You may play against the tackle, Tommy Brown, who probably will start for Alabama along with Bryce. But that, you still need the guy. You need the trigger guy. And we've had them, and JT was one of the greats.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hearing that JT started as a freshman at a place like this, again, tremendous quarterback lineage, and really had to earn it. And then reclassifying. But, Coach, he started out at Southern Cal. I had a chance to visit with T. Martin. T was a guy, big fan of JT's. It's interesting, even though JT left Southern Cal, unlike the SEC, maybe when guys leave, everybody kind of freaks out a little bit. But, the Southern Cal people still have a lot of respect for JT. Sure. But that was a difficult situation that JT went through. And trying to start and only being the second true freshman to start, and a guy that didn't even play a senior year of high school at that. How did you see him deal with that adversity, and how has that become a part of the character and the person that George has taken in?
That's a great question because JT Daniels defines dealing with adversity. There's very few things that JT gets involved in where he struggles, but when he struggles, he comes out taller, but he utilizes everything as a growth opportunity. When the reclassification came about, Mike, in all honesty, I had no clue. Steve, the mom and dad, Steve and JT, and we're 5-0. JT's thrown for 900 touchdowns already. We're scoring. I think we're averaging 48 points a game at that point. And I'm going, JT said, my mom and dad and I'd like to meet with you. And I'm thinking, oh, what's this meeting about? Here comes Mr. Reclassification. And when he said the word, I had an inkling because I had read an article, who knows when, about a basketball player that did it. I didn't even know football players had done it. Very few had up until JT. Initial reaction, Mike, I won't lie to you, the heat came flying up the back of my neck. And I'm thinking, whoa, look out now. And I popped off a little bit. And then I calmed down because as I listened, and Steve, Mom, they never said a word. It was JT's meeting, and it was up to JT to explain to me the wisdom of this decision. As the meeting went on, I saw the wisdom of the decision. The only thing I said is, JT, this has got to stay out of the locker room. We got a special football team. We're going to win the national championship. We're going to go undefeated. We're going to be 15-0 and set all kinds of state records. But I said, I don't need to rock the boat. And as it turned out, we didn't really have to worry about that because there was a lot of loops that had to be closed and a lot of hurdles to go over. JT did it with the utmost of professionalism. The family did it with the utmost of professionalism. And now he goes up to SC. That's just the way things work out. It's you and I know that this game can be ugly at times and it can be painful at times. And you're one bad step away from, bad things happen, and it did. And JT got rolled up and it didn't look that bad. I was watching the game on TV, but it didn't take very long till I found out that it was pretty serious. So, and then I'm going to make the best of every situation. He hung in there. Again, professional, calculated, all the facts brought, and then he makes a decision to go ahead and put himself in the portal. There wasn't a question that I could ask that was not answered by the family. So I supported the decision. Not that I had any bearing on it, Mike, let's face it, but I think they valued my input.
Oh, yeah.
And I liked the choice. I liked the choice a lot because I had watched enough Georgia football. I knew that was the type of offense that he would thrive in.
Yeah. Todd Monken and JT really seemed to hit the right vibe. And Kirby Smart, apparently, the first coach to call. Kirby, a very aggressive recruiter, certainly like you, an alum of the place where he loves. And certainly Kirby has Georgia kind of on the fringe. JT finished really strong. You had an opportunity to watch some JT Daniels last year. What were your thoughts watching JT operate those last 4 games of the season?
When after 5,500 reporters calling me, like I had the inside scoop and I had a pipeline to your medical people at the university. It was nice to sit back. I think the right decision was made, and I'll be honest with you, it is not up to anybody but ultimately the medical staff and the head coach to make the final call when the go sign is. I think you're seeing the fruits of that. Bring him back too soon. We're not doing this interview.
Right.
Okay. The timing was perfect. he takes off and he doesn't look back. And I predicted that. I know I predicted it to you.
You did.
I told you once he takes over, look out, because he just has this ability. He's a born leader. Kids gravitate, his teammates gravitate. They always gravitated towards him. And here we go. You know, you and I, we're lucky because try to find a lot of positives out of COVID. Okay.
Right.
I found one that maybe you haven't thought of, but I'll bet you had, because you're like the smartest reporter I've ever been with. But here it is, Mike. Here it is. How much do you miss? Okay. Going Saturday, college game day.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Okay. I told my kids when they got ready to play Bosco, I said, the only thing that's missing, and I feel bad for you seniors, that stadium, it holds about 10. Okay. It would have been sold out at 6 o'clock at night. And literally they would have had to have police on the outside for people that would have just tried to storm the gates. We didn't get that. The kids didn't get that. I've been in a million of them. Okay. I can't wait for the first full stadium of high school season, August 20th. I'm telling you, we miss that. You miss it. We all miss it. It's coming, fans. It's coming.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun. And think about all those Saturdays. You know, how weird was it to, you couldn't see the guy next to you. He was so far away. You know what I mean? Now we're going to get shoulder to shoulder. We're going to be doing the alma maters and the cheers. That's what life is good. Life is going to be good from August till January for the national championship game.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. You know, you mentioned national championship. I want to dial it back to your national championship with JT. And I think it was 15-0, but it wasn't just California teams. You guys played some teams out of state as well that season, didn't you? I'm pretty sure the 15 team went out of state. I'm going to try and find that schedule, but I remember talking to over the course of JT's career.
Yeah.
I think you guys played some pretty good competition out of state. Who were some of those teams, and what are some of those memories that led to that national championship? As you said, they don't technically have a playoff, but you get voted a national title based on the strength of the Trinity League. We talked about that, 54 FBS guys in one game, and then some of the out-of-conference games, as well as beating the Northern California team. And I won't ask you about that one later, because that's another really great story.
Well, the De La Salle guys, they've had their way for many, many years under one of the greatest high school coaches in national history, Bob Ladouceur. Now it's kind of St. John Bosco and Mater Dei have kind of separated. We dominated in the 90s, but going back, I'm almost sure JT, we had Bishop Gorman that year, if I'm not mistaken. You did.
Bishop Gorman, Nevada, and I see Bergen Catholic, New Jersey on here as well.
And the Bergen guys came out. We played in an honor bowl, which is a game where all the proceeds go to the military. One of my passions, we have a program called Monarchs for Marines, maybe to be discussed at a future point, but we're in partnership with the 1st Marine Division down at Camp Pendleton. Bergen came in and I think we caught them off guard. And you've got to understand the 17 team was one of the best I've ever coached. And I don't get into which one's the best. Different brand of football in the 90s than in recently.
Sure.
But when you looked at that team from top to bottom, we were loaded at every position. The Gorman tilt was the real deal.
Now, weren't they the defending champions?
Yes.
Bishop Gorman, that's out of Las Vegas, and we saw Tate Martell featured on the QB1 series.
Yes, and he Kenny Sanchez was the head coach, good friend of mine, and Kenny was loaded, and he came in and we got after them in probably our closest game, if I remember correctly. JT and that crew kind of launched us into this national arena. I think it helped everybody, my administration, to realize that, example, I can't find games locally, and that's okay.
People don't want to play you guys
No,
outside of the Trinity.
I built a monster, and Jason and I have a lot of laughs over it, but you know what? Okay, we just got to figure out a way, and we'll play the best that's out there, and it's made it kind of fun in these latter part of my career. But that team, an incredible football team. The statistics are staggering.
Yeah, you said it's your closest game. You won by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Oops. So it is kind of interesting when I look at the scores from JT's junior year, which was his last year of high school. 31-7, 35-21 over Bishop Gorman, 42-0 over La Mirada. The Bergen Catholic game, that's the New Jersey team. That's 62-14. They're supposed to be the best in the Northeast there. 52-14 over St. Mary, 70 points up on Santa Margarita, 31 on Bosco, 45, 51, 51, 49, 55, 49, 49, and 52-21 over De La Salle. And, talking with Coach Jason Negro, the head coach over there, and Chris King, the defensive coordinator, and we'll have some video from rival Bosco territory. This rivalry out here between Bosco and Mater Dei it's great. First of all, these places don't look like high schools; they look like college campuses. But secondly, I mean, it's the game, and so much goes in to beating one another. But the thing they said that just irritated them so much about JT was the adjustments that he could make at the line. Now, Coach, from what I hear, this Dave Money guy is the most meticulous. T. Martin told me he's the most meticulous guy ever. For him to turn the reins over to JT, to a high school kid, I mean, how do you guys make that decision that let's let him make these calls at the line? Because that's what drove Bosco nuts, because he was able to pick up what they were doing, adjust the plays at the line, adjust the protection. And you're just not supposed to be able to do that in high school.
It's like you said, go back to, JT and Dave started prepping for this at the Rawlinson Youth Camp.
In sixth grade. And Dave, my offensive coordinator, he's a smart individual, and he throws it out there. And you got to understand, a modern day quarterback. I'll just give you a quick scenario, okay? Normal non-COVID season ends in December. As soon as they get back from Christmas vacation, okay, they for the first month of January, they have to give up 2 lunch periods for a meeting with the offensive coordinator. Okay, February, 3 lunch periods. Okay, March, 4 lunch periods. April, all 5 lunches. You don't go to lunch with your classmates. You are down in the office watching video on the chalkboard. And in that, what Dave does is he gets a reading on the strengths and weaknesses, the mental capacities of the different kids. Primarily then start to focus on your 1 guy and your 2 guy, your backup, God forbid. So then he goes out when he's got a JT or a Bryce. He did this with Barkley and Leinart as early as in 99, 2000. Throw concepts out and see if they understand it. And then what I love about Dave Money is he's never afraid to say, all right, what do you like? How would you do it? What are you more comfortable? So maybe you tweak a drive route to a whip route, okay, and change that part of the concept. You look and say, okay, structurally it's sound. Might not be what Dave Money would do, but that's what the kid wants. He'll never forget that. And it's a process. You don't do it in year 1. You build it over his experience as your starting quarterback. So what we did in 16 with JT, we expanded in 17. Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely.
And again, the quarterback has to be partly responsible too, because if it's not going well, he's got to dial it back down and let the OC take it over. And even if you think as the OC it's going well, the kid might come off and say, hey, let me settle down. I took a pretty good shot there. Call it up for me on this series. That's that communication. JT didn't happen that often that he would turn it back over to the offensive coordinator. But there's that comfort level. I've just given you quarterback teaching 101. But it's all about the whole package. Now, I've had so many quarterbacks that have come to Mater Dei and left. Good kids. They could throw it from here to the next city, but they didn't have that passion. They didn't have what we call the it factor. Our it factor is, do you want to learn more? Do you want to study video? Do you want to take time to draw up concepts? Because they're all going to throw the ball well. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. Saying that, well, he's got the it factor. Okay. No, they've all got it, the ones we get to. So now what kind of leader is he? What kind of chemistry does he permeate in the locker room? All those are where we go with this thing. And JT dotted every I and crossed every T.
It's interesting. He's been working with Jared Palmer, right? Since he was a 6th, 7th grader. He's quarterback guru. One of the things that separates, again, talking with T. Martin, a guy I know well now with the Baltimore Ravens. I know Georgia fans know him from, and Alabama fans know T from when he was a quarterback at Tennessee and won a title, and then a coach out here at Southern Cal for a while, and then recently at Tennessee. But he said, and I asked T, because he recruits the country. I said, T, what makes Southern Cal, what makes it different? What makes JT or a Liner to line? He said, Mike, let me tell you, in Southern California, there are so many great quarterback coaches. And not to say that there's not great quarterbacks all over the country.
Yeah,
there are, but it just so happens maybe because of the, I don't know, maybe the high income level in Southern Cal, they can afford to pay these gurus all this money. But when you're in, and like you said, these coaches, these players, 2, 4, 6 years out, you have an idea who's kind of shaking out where, what does that tell you about these quarterbacks? And the fact JT's out here, I'll give you an example. He's out here right now working with Palmer, but that's not enough for the kid. He calls his Georgia teammate, wide receivers, couple running backs. When he's not working with Palmer on the guys, they're off to the side doing this other stuff. I mean, was that kind of typical form at Mater Dei? And is that, when you talk about the it factor, is that what you're talking about, that extra? Because this may supposed to be his time off.
Yeah, I would tell you, in your buildup, why Southern California, you've also got to throw the weather in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you don't get washed out very often, and that's the extent of it. I can't even tell you what year it was the last time it rained around here. So, and then you have nothing but space. There are fields everywhere. There are parks everywhere. So getting a facility, even if it doesn't have lines, is easy as just, go down the street, you'll find a, good 60, 80 yard stretch of grass. I think it's because of the Southern California lifestyle. A lot of these guys want to reside in Southern California. No, I don't care what state anybody lives in. Okay. We choose to live in Southern California, but then you have the density of population. Okay. There's just that many more kids.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, why, where do all these big linemen come from? Well, Orange County is huge. Okay. It's a massive, and that's just Orange County. So, there's more of them. And then I think the thing that happens is the kids, they gravitate, they're going to go to Bosco, they're going to go to Mater Dei, because if I go to the local high school and there's 1,000 people at the game, that's a good night.
Yeah.
I go to a Mater Dei game, there's 10,000 people, and it's probably either locally, and when I say local, that's the Southern California area, or it's nationally televised. I want to do that. I want to compete against the best, because that's where the best are going. The quarterbacks also know that. Okay, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are coming out of states at that 6th grade level, at that 5th grade level. If there's been anybody that's identified them as a talent, they're going to come where the coaching and training is. And again, I don't know where the best training for quarterbacks are. You can read all this, how many, which state, all I know is just here locally, there's a lot of guys that can coach it. Taylor Kelly, my quarterback coach, Dave Money doesn't coach the quarterbacks anymore. He is the coordinator. He focuses on the entire offense. Taylor Kelly and Adam Dado, QB1 is literally a 15-minute drive where their training facility is. I'm not supposed to drop names, but if you name a guy off, he trains from the best pros to the best collegiate quarterbacks to the best high school quarterbacks. He's on my field every day. He's on my staff. So
wow. Well, you mentioned that. Now, Bryce Young is a guy. And I want to talk about Bryce a little bit because I know he's kind of newer on the scene in the SEC. A lot of people expect Bryce to be the starting quarterback at Alabama. And what I remember, because Bryce, I didn't know a lot about Bryce when we spoke last time. I just knew he was at Alabama, but you said in so many words, he's a running back playing quarterback, Mike. Yeah. And obviously he developed more, and Bryce won a national championship here. And I believe, did he do a QB1 season as well?
Yes.
I don't know how he been released. That's a whole nother animal aspect. But let's start out. Tell me about Bryce Young, the player, because the SEC is going to see a lot of this guy this year, I think.
Yeah. Bryce jumped over after his 3rd semester, 2 seasons at a local Catholic school closer to Los Angeles.
When he saw JT was leaving for USC. Yep.
It's simple math. And Bryce came in. We had seen some of his video, different style than JT. Okay. JT's a pocket guy. Bryce, I don't use dual threat with Bryce. Okay. I hated that term because a dual threat quarterback means you're running the zone read. If we ran, I don't know how many plays he had. If we ran 10%, and it's probably lower than that, where it was a true zone read for Bryce, okay, that was a high number. Bryce was just magical with what he did when he was out of the pocket. And I can tell you a story. When Bryce went through his first spring with us, and he literally had the fastest release I've ever seen, and you will see it. But we only had 15 practices, but we knew he was going to be great. But
sure,
in the summer, we were coaching Bryce up, and we were coaching our offense up. And I noticed during the course of the team segment and the 9-on-7 segment, a couple times the line coach said, in the blitz pickup, Bryce, you got to slide up in the pocket. Bryce, you got to slide right, you got to slide left, and the back coach said, Bryce, you got to, And so after practice, I got everybody together and I said, all right, fellas, listen, I've been watching this thing because I'm the head coach and I get to watch from afar. I said, nobody says anything more to Bryce Young, because what I have noticed is every time Bryce Young gets out of the pocket, whether it's intentional or not, magical things happen. I go, I'm not taking that away from him. I will dialogue with Bryce Young to make sure he does go out of bounds and he does slide. And the next day before practice, I said, Bryce, you do know how to slide, right? You do step out of bounds before the big one gets boomed on you. And he laughed and he goes, yeah, coach, I'll cover myself. From that point on, we let Bryce go. There were times when it was blocked up perfect, but he was waiting on the dig route, or he didn't like the way something smelled, felt. I don't know. Maybe he had eyes on the side of his head, but boom, he'd tornado out. And then the next thing you know, he'd come across, and you're not supposed to throw across your body. He'd throw a rocket ship 40 yards, and touchdown. And I'd always go, I'm a good coach.
It's funny. Georgia fans probably feeling pretty good about this interview until we started talking about how good the Alabama quarter. Listen, I want to take a break right now, just a short break. Our sponsor is Ingles, and certainly Ingles has done a wonderful time, keeping us going through this very difficult and challenging time with COVID. Let's take a moment and recognize our sponsor, Ingles.
It's in our hearts to feel for you. There's been ups and downs, turnarounds, good days and some bad. But we stand together for worse and for better. We'll always have your back with open arms, heart to heart, hand in hand. Community strong.
Welcome back. Mike Griffith here. I'm talking with Bruce Rollinson. He's the 33rd year head coach here at Mater Dei. I love this helmet. I'm a Michigan State guy. I typically don't like anything that kind of reminds me of Michigan, but this is pretty sweet, I got to say. How far back? I'm curious. Give me a little hair. Is this the original Mater Dei helmet? I mean, how far back these babies go?
I played for a legendary coach. I'm an alumnus of Mater Dei High School. I played in the early to mid 60s, and a guy named Dick Corey, who a lot of even the older Georgia fans might remember, coach Mater Dei on to USC, started the Cal State Fullerton, which means nothing to anybody. Was Mr. Second Best twice for the Notre Dame job. Ends up with Dick Vermeil for the Philadelphia Eagles and wins himself a Super Bowl. Another gentleman we have to say a prayer for. We lost coach about a year and a half ago now. But this was his baby. The three stripes are pride, poise, and courage. And that's the Kool-Aid that I get my kids in my program to drink. Okay. Anything you do in life, do it with pride. Okay. Do it with tremendous poise, and don't be afraid of anything. Show the utmost amount of courage in anything you do. And that's our mantra. And that came from Coach. As I say, he took over in 1959 and he ran it. I think it was until 1966. He's like 103 wins and 7 losses. And
Wow.
Yeah. So good thing we broke for the sponsor.
You're getting kind of close to 400, aren't you?
No, I don't think I'm close to 400. I don't know what my record is.
I tried to find it earlier. There's a lot of stuff good, but we were talking about Bryce a moment ago, and people know about JT's recruitment. How did the Bryce Young recruitment go? How quickly was he noticed, or was he already on the radar when he came here? I'm curious. Obviously, a talent like that, I would imagine drew national interest.
Everybody's radar. Yeah, everybody's radar. And I think he was a lock to go to USC. And as you say, I mean, I'm an SC grad, and I've been accused a million times of sending my players to USC. I'm not going to send any kid to any college, because the first phone call they make if they're unhappy is to me, not to their parents. And I don't ever want that phone call where the kid says, "Coach, you told me to go here." And then there was, there was some uncertainty. I'm a big Clay Helper fan. I tell you, I think the guy's going to turn it around. I have no doubts that they will get it turned around up there. Now that's my Trojan bias right there. But there was the uncertainty, and now all of a sudden that commitment is wavering. And then here comes Nick Saban, and it's kind of like, okay. I think would have gotten interesting. Mac Jones never looked back, but had you had non-COVID, I'm a homer guy.
In spring drills, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Might be a whole different picture that we're looking at, but that wasn't the Lord's plan. The Lord's plan was to make him sit. And I think that's going to be hugely beneficial to Bryce Young, that sitting there, being the big star from youth football all the way through high school. Now it's his turn up, and he'll take full advantage of that. And I'll tell you, you guys are in for some excitement. Myself, I'd like to see that game in Atlanta be the Dogs against the Tide.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find me a ticket to that one.
I got a feeling that's probably what it's going to be, Coach. You mentioned, I want to bounce it back to JT here for a second, because you mentioned sitting, and I remember watching JT Daniels sit the bench at Georgia.
Yeah.
sit the bench at Georgia. Now, you pointed out correctly that Kirby was going to protect that kid from himself. JT's a competitor. Look, these kids, they're all Superman, right? And, they all think they're indestructible. JT takes the knee brace off after Tennessee, and he wasn't waving it around or anything, but it was pretty clear JT was trying to say, hey, I'm ready to go. Yeah. Kirby's looking at this guy, checking with, he's got a Hall of Fame trainer there as well, and he's checking with Coach Corson, and he knows where JT's at. And the last thing he needs is some guy on half a leg running around with these DNs in the SEC. Just a couple of years ago, only 4 out of 14 starters finished the year in the SEC at quarterback. You're going down in that league, man. They're going to get you. It's not win. It's not if, it's win. So it was kind of interesting, though. I was watching when the camera angles would show them, because a lot of times these guys, Coach, and them, you got them here. Everybody says the right thing when you're undefeated. Everybody leads when you're winning. But what's going to happen when there's real adversity? What's going to happen when football is taken away from JT Daniels? And he's not the star. He's not the prodigy. He's not the guy at the front of the room on the chalkboard, the guy changing the plays, the guy starting it as a true freshman at a football place like Modern Day that everybody, moves here just to play. He's not that guy. He's on the bench. And as his mom said in a recent interview with me, he felt invisible. And that, to me, was the moment for JT Daniels, because we knew what he could do in the game.
Sure.
But what do your guys, what do the Modern Day guys do when the chips are down? And to me, that was the fascinating part of last season for JT Daniels. Not what he did on the field, but how he handled himself off the field and how that sets him up now with the coaching staff and his teammates.
I can go. My philosophy, and I start with, I have an incoming class of freshmen coming at me here in less than a month. And there are certain things that I start to teach. And one of those things is adversity. And I said, turn adversity into success. Now, that could be done in a short amount of time. Depending on the severity of the adversity, it may take a longer time. But just turn it into success. JT knows that. I guarantee you the next time you talk to him, he'll smile and say, oh, yeah, he preached about that. How you and I deal with adversity shows us what kind of men we are, what kind of families we have, what kind of children we raise, what kind of grandchildren in my case, because life is about adversity. End of story. If it was all a bed of roses, we'd all be the president of the United States or whatever other lofty thing that we want. It's not that way. If you look at a JT Daniels, okay, or a Bryce Young, I can tell you this. JT Daniels, as Clay Helton told me, never missed. If he was on crutches, in the wheelchair, he never missed an offensive meeting or never missed a practice that he was allowed to attend as an SC Trojan immediately after the injury. He stayed engaged because he knew he was being watched. He didn't do it for any other reason, but that's what Steve Daniels, that's what the Daniels family represents. That's what we hope our children would do. That's what you hope your children would do. Unfortunately, they're all not built the same. But I know it was eating them up. And I said, JT, God has a plan. So just relax and go with the flow. But I know you're not going to relax. But I also always say another thing. I say, just get a daily planner and talk to you. Nobody's going to check your daily planner. It's your daily planner. And put down on that day, I'm so mad at everything and I think I should be playing, and I go, then reflect back because you're going to get to go. And then you're going to laugh about that, all those bad thoughts you had. And I've always said this, 2 things. It would be great if we could coach a year of football, then go back and play.
Right.
Okay. And the kids that have had tremendous success for me are kids that it was taken away part of the year or all year, because every training session became that much more valuable to them. And they became less, they became intolerable with the kids that weren't taking advantage of their God-given talent.
Right.
I've had leaders that have said, you don't understand. This thing could end right now like it did for me. You're not going to hold me back. That's good stuff. You can't make that up unless it happened to you.
Right.
Okay. But I can tell you, he hit that crossroads. Where you go, which direction you go. I knew which direction he'd go. And now it's going to be fun for the Southern California, the modern day faithful, and the Georgia faithful to watch this kid go.
There's one story that I really liked, and I know Concord de La Salle was a thorn in your side for a long time, right? And I knew some people that had played. Kevin Simon was the guy that was a defensive player of the year way back in the day that I covered at Tennessee. And they had I think they had the nation's longest winning streak or something, didn't they? Like 8 years without a loss or something crazy, Steve. This is Rose competitive over here. Like, let's play them now. But you were getting ready to play those guys in the state championship with JT. And I don't remember all the details, except you told me when you looked out the hotel room windows that morning, you started to get a little nervous.
Well, the thing, I was 0 for 4 against them. In the 90s, Leinart probably came the closest in his junior year. I mean, we're down 21-0 against them. And I remember going to the sideline saying, Matty, I don't see any other way out of this. I go, we're throwing every down. Just light it up. Let it fly. You can't do any wrong. I don't care how many picks you throw. You got it. We got to come back into this thing. We came roaring back into it. Matt's going to go on and throw for 460 yards and against De La Salle, who was on their win streak at the time. Unfortunately, we had a chance to tie it at the end with a field goal. We missed a field goal. That's adversity. Yeah. There were 34,000 people in the stadium that night. And this poor 17-year-old misses the tying field goal. Love the kid. That's adversity. But now flash forward. Now here's my chance. I got a very, very good football team. And we busted on up to Sacramento. It was about 8.5-hour bus ride. And it was gorgeous. Now it was cold at night, cold for us. I don't know what the weather's like in Georgia. I know it snows once in a while, but I mean, we had a night practice when we got into Sacramento, and it was probably 34 or 35 degrees, which my guys are all you'd thought we just got off the bus at the North Pole, but I go, okay, we can deal with this. It's going to be a little chilly at game time. But when I woke up, probably right after breakfast, I looked out and I could see the palm trees, and the trees are all just starting to go sideways. And I'm going, well, this ain't good. Now we're going to throw ourselves a little bit of low 30s, high 20s with a wind chill on this thing. And I'm checking the Weather Channel, which I didn't even know there was a Weather Channel till the guy showed it to me and says you can get it up to minute reports, and it's popping off at 40 miles an hour. Wow. So we got over to the stadium, all the signs are blown down, the flags are going sideways. And I'm thinking, well, this plays right into them because they're actually a triple option football team. They'll spread it. They do a real nice job up there. And, I'm going to put it up in the air. So I went to Taylor Kelly. I was a nervous wreck. Plus it was, I'm 0-4 against these guys now. And there's nobody that's dominated me like that. And I said, Taylor, I go, do we talk to JT about the wind? And he looked at me and he goes, oh God, no. He goes, don't say a word. Okay. So they chose to kick off, obviously. And I think the ball landed in Oregon somewhere. And so we're coming out and, we ran it for the first down, and then I think we got another, but now it's 3rd and 11 and we're on the left hash and it is blowing. I mean, the headphones are driving me crazy because of the mic, the wind in the mic, but all this is foreign territory to myself and my staff. And I hear the call come over and I thought to myself, what's a wide side throw? JT put his foot in the ground, let this thing fly. Okay. It was about a 16-yard frozen rope into the teeth of the wind to the wide side. It was what we call Ohio or an out. It was a comeback route by Amon Ra. And just boom right there. And I go, all right, we won't be talking about the wind. I mean, I was fascinated. There's not a whole lot of high school kids that are going to make that throw. There's not a lot of college guys that can make that throw. He throws for, right over 300 that night in a windstorm. Those are crazy things that this kid was capable of doing.
No doubt, really cemented his place as a Southern California high school legend. There's a lot of them, and certainly JT was a special one. Coach, before I let you go, the opener, DJ Uiagalelei.
Yes.
Another guy you're pretty
Yes.
familiar with, Bosco. That Bosco modern day robber. I'm telling you, I'm going to be checking it out. Like I'd heard a lot about, but now like I have a vested interest, having talked to both of these coaches and knowing what goes on behind it. Like I said, anytime you can watch 56 FBS guys on the field at one time in a high school game, you're seeing some quality ball. Tell us about DJ. Obviously, you guys played against him at Bosco. I think he probably beat you a couple of times, I think, and you got him a few times. What kind of player is this, and what do you remember about DJ and what he has to offer?
Well, when he was a 10th grader, they had another kid that they had won the championship, beat us.
Real Mitchell, right?
Real Mitchell, and now here comes Real back for his senior year, and we'd heard about this 10th grade kid. You always get a preview in the summer because passing tournaments are big, high school passing tournaments, not these club things. Okay. And most of the time, Jason's going to check where I'm going. I'm going to check. It's Jason Negro, the head coach of St. John Bosco, my good friend. Because we want to go against each other.
Right.
And usually the championship game in a tournament is going to be Bosco and Mater Dei, and one of us was going to win the tournament. So we'd heard about. I saw him when he was a freshman, and I wasn't like, whoa. Now that growth spurt, which I've always believed, that between that 9th and 10th grade, there's a big growth spurt. Now all of a sudden, here comes this kid. I'm looking up, man, this kid's huge, and the big arm as a 10th grader. Now, he had velocity issues. Jason probably be the first one to admit it, because he hadn't gotten that touch. And he was splitting time. By the time we get to him, of course, with my luck, Jason has made the switch. He's going to ride DJ's arm for the next 2.5 years because, we play them in the middle of the season. And we knew this rivalry is going to get that much more intense because we know we're going to have a trigger man. We have one with JT. We have, and then here comes Bryce, and they have DJ. And I'll tell you what, got to know the young man. Not a lot, not like, we're best of buddies, but I watched his demeanor again, me with my it factors. You could tell he was not enamored with himself. He was always talking to people, congratulating his teammates. He was very cordial, and a lot of that has to do with the coaching staff and the way Jason, what Jason demands of his players, which is exactly what we demand of our players. You win and lose with class. But I watched him, and that was an ingredient because I knew it was just going to become astronomical, the amount of attention, because I'd already had my share of them. And the longer I stay in it, the more awards, the more these kids are taken across the nation to win this award, and the more people that are in their ears, and it gets a little much. These are high school kids.
Sure.
But that'll be in my book. but you know, then it enhanced the rivalry that much more. You know, because when you look for advantages or disadvantages against most opponents that we play against, we're going to find an advantage here or an advantage there. Okay. A lot of times in the 90s and in other parts of my career, it's been coaching. You know, we're just going to out-coach them. That's not the case with them. Okay. We're going to out-execute you. That's not the case with them. We're going to out-physically. That's not the case with them. So then the chess match is on. And you know, Jason and I, you know, we kind of look at each other sometimes and you know, I thought this was an evenly matched game. My X factor was I started another freshman this year.
Right.
And I had no clue what a just turned 15-year-old was going to do in a game of this magnitude. He had a really good night. They were off a little bit. And so we chalked one up for the Monarchs in April. And then we're going to see each other in late September next year because it's our first league game. And then I think, I don't know, Jason knows all this stuff because he's younger and smarter than me. But I don't know how many years in a row it's been us and them. I think it's 5 or 6 now in the finals. So, you know, we hope that's the scenario. The biggest compliment, and I'll tell you what, I like those guys. I like Jason a tremendous amount. In 2011, I know people are getting tired of listening to me. 2011, only year in 33, going on 33 that we didn't make the playoffs. And it was time to make some decisions. It wasn't about firing guys. It was about Bruce Robinson completely self-evaluating the entire football program. I also had watched what Jason was starting to build there. And I started to pick his brain. Now, he could have said, you know what, what my secrets are my secrets, your secrets are your secrets, and I'll see you sometime in the fall. That wasn't the case. Any question I've ever asked Jason Negro, from fundraising to golf tournament to anything, okay, gives me ample amount of material. And I think that's a first-class person. He knows we're going to do everything we can, him and I, to prepare our football teams and to develop young men. And then for 48 minutes, we're going to go after each other. And then we're going to laugh and smile and shake hands at the end. You know, I've apologized to him profusely. My kids got a little bit too carried away. I think it was pent up, but I'm not going to make excuses. There was a couple of water bottles that got thrown in. Right. And, you know, Jason got not hit with the bottle, but got some water on. But, you know, I felt horrible. Felt horrible. Now, there's some coaches I play against. I wanted to personally take the Gatorade thing out. I couldn't carry 5 gallons and dump it on their heads, but not Jason Negro. And that's the kind of relationship we have. He's pulling for me. I'm pulling for him. We beat, in Bryce's senior year, we beat St. Francis. They came out and they were stacked. And I think we caught them by surprise. First guy to greet me as that game was winding down was Jason Negro to congratulate me. You know, that kind of summarized it. And I've told many people that, you know, I think he was as happy for me as I was as happy for me.
So when you saw DJ win a national title, I think DJ won one, right? With 2019, would that have been the DJ?
Modern day for it.
Well, was that the game? Oh my goodness, I wasn't supposed to go there.
Yeah.
This is the 2019 game. I really did space it,
Coach Griffith. You just crushed me. I was let's put it this way. I was 1 minute and 36 seconds on the 11-yard line with a timeout in my back pocket from winning the 3rd national championship in a row.
Wow.
And I credit they came up with a blitz. High school around it, baby.
But it wasn't just losing it. I mean, part of it's them winning it, as you said.
No, I agree.
Part of it's DJ doing it. I mean, you say big arm and a kid that had velocity. How does he go from the kid with the big arm and the velocity issues to the guy that's going to be starting for Clemson this year? what transposed over there?
I think what no, he grew. Maybe I didn't finish my story correctly. He grew to a point where he was reading defenses, and we were throwing everything we had at him, and he was still finding the seams and the coverages and the disguises. You can get away with that when they're younger, but now you have this kid with all this experience, and now it's just athlete versus athlete. And I do give Bosco the credit. We had the first half that you dream about, but that's not the one that wins the game. Now, if I got to get on the bus after 24 minutes, they had the second half to dream about, it's a crazy business because those are the ones you never forget.
I know you. I promise I bumped into that.
Never forget them. That's all right.
You've got the 4 national titles, and this was the one. But we saw it happen to Kirby Smart. Listen, Alabama. George has led Alabama at halftime 3 times. Every time Kirby's played Nick, he's led him at halftime. And sometimes it's been a little fluky. I don't want to use that word because guys play hard and you make your own breaks. But there's been some calls here and there that Georgia. What were your impressions of Kirby? You've seen a lot of coaches come in and out of your office recruiting your guys. What were your impressions of Kirby Smart? You've had a chance to watch a little more Georgia football than usual.
I watch a little bit of sideline demeanor, okay, because you can always learn, okay. If you're a good head football coach, you're how do I get better by watching whatever Georgia Tennessee game, okay, and you watch the interaction with players, okay. I love his energy, I love his excitement. Then what I paid more attention to is pregame and post-game comments, okay? How did they handle, the pregame, not as much because you're all going to get the stock answers to the questions.
Sure.
But post-game, and those guys fascinate me. 100,000 people in the stadium, like you said, you come up short. I know there was a Georgia game, what you guys were on the 4-yard line or something. I forget.
Yeah.
But, how does the guy handle that? Do you know what I mean? Is he pointing fingers? Does he allude to somebody's fault? And everybody's, it's your fault.
Right. At the end of the day,
it's your fault. You run the ship. Okay. You're the one that put it on the rocks. I'm sorry. I've had that. I mean, God, they were calling me too old for this job 10 years ago. so, but Coach Smart, then you meet them personally and you see another side of them. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Sure.
Okay. Sure. You would hope, out of respect for how old I am, but there's not a lot of puff, they want to talk. And then is he a listener or does he want, the man listens, he's well thought out. I've had him, come in here, and I'm not going to mention names. And I thought the marching band was coming in after them, and I'm the one that's wrapping this thing up. It's a waste of my time. This guy's not being real with me. I'm just a high school football coach.
Right.
You're not recruiting me. My downs are long done.
Right.
But the impression is what I got to sell to my kids, because sooner or later they're going to say, well, you met him. What did you think of him?
Well, Kirby's dad was a high school football coach, so he holds coaches in high esteem. That's probably a lot.
Sure.
And obviously he has a lot of respect for what you've done here. He's recruiting your players. That's the ultimate sign of respect.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's pretty interesting, Coach. Man, I'll tell you, we've taken a lot of time up for Coach. I really appreciate being able to come out here and really on short notice. We were going to have lunch, and they said, I kind of threw Coach Rolo, as they call him out here, kind of threw him a curveball. So we're going to do a live show for about an hour instead. So it went from a nice 10 or 15-minute lunch to a 1-hour live show about modern day football and some tough times, right? We talked about some tough times the programs had and some adversity that you fully admit. I mean, you spent as much time talking about your adversity as all your championships, and you've won about 90% of your games. So that's pretty telling too, that, you kind of keep that reality above you keep that visual above your reality. You keep moving the goalposts on yourself here, Coach. Not too long ago, you had to trade your left arm for a win over Concord de La Salle. Now you want to win all the state titles.
There you go. There you go.
A lot of momentum here at Mater Dei. So I want to thank everybody for joining us here on our Dog Nation YouTube channel as well as Facebook. And for Coach Bruce Rollinson, this is Mike Griffith. Want everybody to have a great week. Check us out for more videos from Southern California later this week.